Welcome to Mo's Market Pulse. I'm your host, Sara Mokaram, founder of Mo Digital Solutions, where we help businesses hit their revenue goals and thrive. On this podcast, we talk with industry leaders about their business, market trends, growth strategies, and what's ahead. Today's guest is Ed Lorenzini, the CEO of Analyze Corporation, a data analytics firm helping businesses turn consumer data into actionable insights. With over 30 years of experience in federal and commercial sectors, Ed has led innovations in AI-driven segmentation and lead generation. So Ed, thank you so much for joining me today. And I would love to kick things off by getting to know more about you and the journey behind Analyze Corporation. I'd love to set the stage with a little context for our listeners. So to start, could you just tell us a little bit about your professional background and what led you to create Analyze Corporation?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Really appreciate being here and the opportunity to talk and share with your audience. So, for me, I started out working for the government. I was doing computer analytics. We were doing things involving what became AI. And as I was in the government space, I learned that we were doing a lot of the same things over and over again. We were finding a lot of insights, especially in people. We were doing some analysis on people. And it just became clear that this could be pretty valuable in the consumer marketplace. So my team and I in the government, we came out, and in 2013, we started what we have now, which is called Analyze Corporation. And we began looking for a very, very large data set, maybe on consumers, that we could analyze, leverage, and just really give some special tools to people who'd be interested in that. And so that's really how I got here and how we started the company. And then the data set we ended up finding was consumer data on all US people. So in our SaaS platform that we created, we leverage all that. And I can share more about that as we go along.
Perfect. And for folks hearing about Analyze 360 for the first time, how would you describe what it does and how it's different from traditional data platforms?
Yeah. So Analyze 360 is our cloud based consumer analytic platform. It does several things, but primarily consumer segmentation and lead generation. It does those two things. Let me describe how it does that, and then I'll talk to you about how that's different. We have been able to aggregate all the data on US people from the credit bureaus, primarily Experian. And so we have data on 220 million US people, which is almost everybody in the US over the age of 18. And we have over 360 variables on each person. In addition to age, income, homeowner status, we know a lot about what they're buying in the economy, what their households look like, children, not children, that type of thing. 360 of these things. We've been able to put that in our platform. We let our customers come through our very easy to use user interface. And then you can leverage all of that information. The primary way we see our customers leveraging that information is that they're in a B2C company, they're selling to consumers. They take the list of their current customers, just first name, last name, and address. That's all they need. They upload that into our platform. Our platform automatically looks all of them up. We do all the machine learning, all the algorithm building, all the clustering, and we end up with a math model just in near real time that mathematically describes their customer set. That math model then scores everybody to tell them who their best customers are, who their not best are. Then it writes all the reports for them. They're going to get all the sociometric, psychographic, and demographic insights into who their customers are. They're going to learn a lot about very specifically who those customers are. And then finally, since they have that math model, they can put that back into the data set for the whole US, pick a geography, certain variables, and they could pull out more prospects, 100, 1,000, 10,000. All this happens just within minutes. Knowing who your customers are, getting all the reporting, and finding new customers. So that's the way the platform works. We've got it very accessible, easy to use. That's one differentiator between what's going on in the marketplace. Right now, in the marketplace, if you wanted what I just described, you would have to go to Axiom, Experian, Nielsen, Merkle. You'd have to pay tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands. You'd have to wait weeks, if not months. And then you'd get back a one-time report. When you get that one-time report back, if you're willing to pay that much, and only Fortune 500 can really afford that, when you get that one-time report back, it creates more questions than it answers. And if you want to do some more analysis, you have to pay some more money. So what we've done is we've made our platform that I described less than a tenth of that cost. We've made it happen in near real time, and we're trying to put this into the hands of mid-market, small to medium-sized businesses, giving them even more power than the Fortune 500 and allowing them to not only compete, but exceed in that sense.
I love that. That's a really powerful solution. So, I'd like to zoom out a bit and talk about the broader landscape you're operating in. There's a lot happening in the data and analytics space. What trends are you seeing in how companies, especially B2C brands, are leveraging consumer data to drive growth today?
Yeah, that's a two-sided question from our perspective. One side is that there is a proliferation of data. Each company is collecting more, and more is available. And they're taking that data and putting it in, just for general terms, a data lake. They're dropping it in a spot where they someday could access that. It's almost like a basement where you're storing a bunch of stuff. And after a while, you don't even know what's down there. That's happening. There are companies that will charge you a lot of money to tell you what's going on in there, and that, you can decide if that's worth it or not. If you decide that your basement is Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Cloud or something, then you're going to pay a lot of money to store it there and access it. So we see that happening. Collection of lots and lots of data, but not really a good focus on how to use it. The other thing we see happening is the data that is being used isn't being used very efficiently, very wisely, very targeted. And so they'll pull something out of that big data lake and they'll try something, and it may or may not work, but it doesn't really become a thing they're doing all the time. It's not a muscle movement that they're doing a lot. So although there is the proliferation of data, there's those two issues of just so much of it, nobody's doing anything with it. And then when they do something with it, it's not very strategic. So it's just a perspective we see happening.
Are there particular industries or business models that tend to get the most out of your platform right now?
Yes. So our data is consumer data. So it's business to consumer companies. The two kind of major categories that we see our customers fall in, one is marketing and advertising agencies. This is a great product for marketing and advertising agencies to use on behalf of their customers. The price point is very inexpensive, and they can spread that across all of their customers and give them great insights, data driven insights, messaging, cross selling, upselling ideas. Marketing agencies are using us a lot for their B2C companies that they work on behalf of. And then also the consumer brands. We're seeing more and more interest from the brands themselves and their marketing departments to leverage consumer data insights and lead gen themselves. It turns out that um, over time, agents, marketing departments, and marketers have become less and less central to the decision making at the top, the C level. And it's because they just haven't had strategic insights. They haven't had tools that bring their science to the table. And so our platform is allowing consumer brands to do that. And the marketers who use our platform are seeing more engagement at the C level because of what they're bringing to the table with what they learned from us.
So let's bring it back to what you're doing to grow. Building something powerful is one thing, getting the word out is another. So, how are you currently attracting new customers and what channels or tactics are working best for you?
So this is always a struggle for every business. Well, not every business. There are some unicorns that just grow because they grow, but most aren't. Our biggest issue is education. The mid market has traditionally not used segmentation. They haven't known the power of it because they haven't really been in a Fortune 500 company where you paid all the money to get it. So we have to do a lot of educating. So our outreach is focused on early adopters. Early adopters are the people who lined up for an iPhone before they even knew what it was, but they just knew they had to have it. And so we spend a lot of time with them because they catch on quickly. They're willing to try things. And when they do, they tell the people who come right behind them, the technically interested who want to follow the early adopters. So if we had to educate a whole population, it would be hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. That's not where we're at. So we're doing education. How do we educate? We're doing inbound campaigns on our website. We're working on going to conferences, speaking, those kind of things to get the message out. And then we're also doing outbound emailing. We do that at scale. And we're using that for our lead generation. We have messaging that's important. We're in the process of writing a book right now. We've just released the summary of it, a booklet called Beyond Segmentations. That's on our website, but the full book's coming out soon. The premise in that book is really what we use for our messaging and all our marketing. And it's, why is traditional marketing clustering failing marketers right now? Why is the traditional methods failing them? And there's a lot of real good reasons for that. And we address that and our platform fixes that. And this is really the education that we're doing in all of our outreach.
Okay. So, of course, no journey is without its bumps. So, let's talk about some of the challenges you're seeing along the way. What's been the hardest part about getting small and mid sized businesses to adopt a platform like yours? I know you mentioned a bit about educating. Is there anything else that you feel like is a hard or difficult part about getting them on board?
Yeah. So, there's four typical things you look at when you're trying to sell to somebody. Is the budget there? Do they have a need? Are they the decision maker or have access to them? And then what about the timing? Is it the right time? We've learned that it's always the right time to have a product that could help you. So timing hasn't been an issue for us. Budget, we've done a lot to remove that. We make this so affordable at very low prices that when somebody hears what we do, then they hear the price, they're like, that's amazing. So the budget and the timing are taken away. So the need and the decision making, those are the two things we struggle with. On the decision making side, we're typically looking to have demos with and meetings with decision makers. So if we're not with a decision maker, we're always thinking about how to get to that person. It takes a little work. But the need one is the hardest for us. They're not used to this. Their customers aren't asking them generally for segmentation. Their customers aren't asking them to go that far. And so when we show them what we're doing, they love it, but they say, well, we don't really know if we have a need for that or not. This is where those early adopters come in play because they're the ones who figure out how to use stuff and make it work. And then we're always watching use cases. We publish use cases to kind of generate more of an understanding around need. So that's really the struggle for us, getting them to feel like this is actually something they need because it's not what they're doing now.
Right. And so, how are you connecting with those early adopters or finding
Yes.
them?
So we've got companies that help us with our lead gen for ourselves, B2B lead gen companies. We have them looking for B2C companies or marketing and advertising agencies and senior leaders there who would be interested in a call or a demo with us. And then when our messaging goes out to them, it says things like, why is traditional clustering failing, modern marketers? Well, an early adopter wants to know that. What's the problem with legacy clustering? Early adopters want to know that kind of stuff. So they're kind of self-selecting themselves to meet with us. You know, do you know about the real world failure of Procter and Gamble and what the wake up call was there? So, our messaging is going to the right people, attracting them onto a demo. Once we get them onto a call and we start sharing what we're doing, it's always very captivating for somebody who likes technology and what it can do.
Are there any myths or misunderstandings about consumer data that you often find yourself needing to clarify?
Well, there is. Often people don't believe that you could have as much data as we have. We have over 360 variables on 220 million US people, and that's huge. Sometimes they are not sure if you're allowed to have that. This is not the protected PII. It's personal information, but it's all information you can have. This information has been out since the late 1980s. Experian has been publishing it since then. It's the gold standard for this kind of data, and you're able to use this. We follow all the fair credit and lending rules. We follow all the HIPAA rules and our customers have to as well. But that's kind of another myth about the data. It's not usable or there's rules around it. And then finally, people want to know, well, how accurate is it? And it's interesting. There is a lot of inaccurate data out there about consumers, and that comes from kind of surveys where people talk about feelings and ideas. Somebody might say, yeah, I love horses and I think they're amazing, but they don't own a horse, but they might be translated into owning a horse. We would actually know who owns a horse because the consumer bureaus are collecting all the information on what you're buying. So this is all real ground truth information. And as you show a propensity to buy something, then the consumer bureaus are capturing that, and that's the information we have. So it's all very, very relevant and accurate.
So, you and I connected earlier this week, and on that call, you mentioned about some difficulties around different B2B data platforms. Did those experiences with some of those B2B platforms or difficulties that you found influence how you approach building Analyze?
Well, I think they did. We knew that our platform needed to be very intuitive. It needed to be very user friendly, and it had to focus around the most common use cases. And it had to be accessible by people who weren't experts in computers, weren't experts in data. And so I think we've been able to achieve that. But we saw in a lot of the other B2B type platforms that they weren't that user friendly. And then also that the data that they had wasn't always as accurate. We checked a lot of that. And So in our platform, we know that the data is very accurate and usable and reliable.
Well, thank you. This has been really helpful perspective so far. I would like to now shift and let's look ahead a bit. What's on the horizon for you and your team? So, over the next 12 months, what are your top priorities or goals that you're focused on as a business?
Yeah, the top goal for this year is to increase customer participation on the platform. We have thousands of use cases that are happening, and we're trying to grow our customer base. And so we're looking to increase the customer base this year by 50% over last year. So that's probably most important. The second thing we're doing is we've gotten to a great place with the platform and the consumer data we have. We're now looking at adding another kind of data, which could be a real game changer. We now have access to not only the consumer data from Experian, but also all of the cell phone data for that's being reported in the US. So we have data right now we're looking at for 1 month for the whole US. It's 4 billion data points a day. And we're able to see where people's cell phones are. We don't know who they are, so we're allowed to do this. And we know their advertising ID. So we're looking at seeing if we can find them at points of interest. We're looking to see if we can kind of see where they're congregating, spending most of their time. And then we're going to be able to capture that mobile ID and potentially give that to our customers to be able to push digital and mobile ads out. Ultimately, we want to see if we can connect this to our consumer database and give more granular information on who those people might be in terms of their demographics, sociometrics, and psychographics so they could advertise to those. Right now, our consumers can advertise by direct mail, by telephone call, and by emailing. And they can also push our data out to social platforms with first name, last name, and address. But if we can get those mobile IDs and their geolocations, that really opens up a lot. For example, we have a marketing agency who markets on behalf of jewelry stores. So their jewelers say, well, hey, who's going to my competitor's store to shop for jewelry? I'd like to know. Well, we can create a point of interest around his competitor's jewelry store. We can look at all the mobile IDs that were there during a certain period of time. We can give those to the marketing agency, and now they can advertise on behalf of that jeweler because they know that somebody in the neighborhood's in the market for jewelry. So that's really exciting for us. We're working on that this year. We think we'll have something around that to roll out next year.
Wow, that is super exciting. A lot more data there. To close
Absolutely.
us out, what advice would you give to other founders or marketing leaders trying to innovate in a space that requires both trust and education?
Yeah, what advice? Think twice before you get into it. No, it takes a lot of work, and I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is to get the right people on board, the right technical people, the right marketing people. And when you find somebody who's on board that doesn't really fit, don't waste a lot of time. Move on, find somebody else. Get the right people on board. Next is it takes a lot more money than you think it does to start a business and run a business, and you can trade money for time. So if you can raise a lot of money early on, you can make your train move very fast and you can get to places quickly. You can lose a lot of money quickly, but you can make a lot of money quickly. But if you don't have a lot of money, you're just trading that for time and you have to slow down. And so knowing what speed you should be working at has a lot to do with how much money you've been able to raise or amass. As you start to bring on customers, always reinvest that into the platform or your offering and finding new customers. If you're taking that, siphoning that out to do something else with it, then it slows down growth.
That's really great advice. And for those who want to learn more about Analyze Corporation or Analyze 360, or even connect with you, where is the best place?
Yeah, you can go to our website, analyzecorp.com, or you can search for Analyze360, take you to our website. All our contact information is there. Email me directly if you want. My email address is my first name, Ed, at analyzecorp.com, and then I'll get that and respond out to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to Mo's Market Pulse. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, and join us again to hear more insights from leaders coming up on future episodes. Thank you so much, Ed, for joining us today. It's been great to have you.